today's gaming standards, first-person shooters are the most common games you'll come across. Being the most overused genre in gaming history, sooner or later every game developer takes a shot at it. Even though nowadays the gaming market is overflooded by them, one cannot deny that there were many model examples, such as Half-Life, System Shock 2, Deus Ex, and Bioshock, all of which innovated and refined the genre. However, there are also those whose heredity outshadows anything these games did to redeem the genre. These are games whose dreadfulness makes generic titles like Call of Duty feel original and innovative. These are the worst of the worst, the very bottom of the barrel. Before we begin, you should know that Call of Duty is not on this list, because despite being shit in general, which is a well-known fact, at least the gameplay is functional. Well, just barely. I'm E. Thompson, and this is the top 10 worst FPS games of all time.
Number 10.
The Walking Dead TV series and the Walking Dead game series are among the greatest zombie-related media outlets ever to be experienced. The Walking Dead survival instinct gave us nothing but a shit stain on everything these two managed to achieve. This is exactly the quintessential type of cheap, lazy, uninspired cash-in that's one of the main reasons why the gaming industry is going downhill. I seriously can't say anything that'll do it justice. This game is essentially a shitty version of Dead Island in every sense of the word. The AI is atrocious, the stealth mechanics are broken, the combat is lame and repetitive, the music is bad, the visuals suck, the overall execution is just pathetic, and the story actually manages to stain the original to a certain degree. There's simply nothing good about this game in any regard whatsoever, and to associate these two with a mess like this is just degrading. The Walking Dead survival instinct is proof that you simply cannot make a shooter to cash in on a franchise that knows well enough not to rely on the sort of crap shooters are all about these days. So do yourself a favor and forget this game ever even existed.
No.
Ah yes, one of the most enjoyable urban myths in gaming history, Super Noah's Ark 3D, is widely seen as the black sheep of shooters. Literally. If you're not familiar with the story, sit back and enjoy. Back in the days of the NES, there was this Christian game company called Wisdom Tree. These guys have been notorious for making a whole bunch of religious games, all of which have not been legally licensed by Nintendo. Their most famous game is Bible Adventures, one of the worst NES games ever made. As much as the game was critically panned, the number of Christian purchases actually allowed these nutjobs to make additional games, which continued well up to the days of the SNES. Now, here's where Super Noah's Ark 3D comes in. After id Software allowed Nintendo to port Wolfenstein 3D on the SNES, Nintendo severely butchered the port, which ranged from toning down the blood and violence to other major derogatory changes. Suffice to say, the SNES port was quite inferior to the original version. This infuriated id Software to the point that they gave Wisdom Tree the source code to make this particular game. And just by looking at the gameplay, everything comes full circle, doesn't it? Yes, this is Wolfenstein 3D, where the Nazis have been replaced with sheep, and instead of using a gun, you use a slingshot. Yeah. Well, the urban myth basically revolves around how this game was supposed to be a mockery of Nintendo's censorship of the Wolfenstein port. As much as I don't know whether this myth is true or not, I can say for certain that this game is undoubtedly one of the worst in its entire genre, because all it takes is one good look, and everything explains itself very clearly. Good lord.
Number 8.
Steve Earle! Steve Earle, do you hear me?
When you're talking about obscure games, you can talk about those that are unknown for no reason, or those that have been intentionally forgotten. And then there are games like Country Justice, Revenge of the Rednecks. Because once you've played it, you'll find out exactly why you've never heard of it. And you know what? Instead of just talking about the game and all its flaws, I'm just gonna show you some random footage and let you decide whether or not this is truly one of the worst shooters in gaming history.
Are you drunk or stupid?
You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Just taking care of business. That's what I'm talking about.
What's happening, cuz?
Hunger, burning love.
Foreplay to you consists of slipping off a set.
The history of rock and roll stem from rhythm and blues and gospel. Well, this is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. Just taking care of business.
Number 7.
You know what I really hate? When someone makes a game that not only ends up being bad, but offensive as well. Games like Fugitive Hunter really make me wonder, where do people find such nutjobs to design games like these? You basically play as an agent for a top secret military task force, sent to the Middle East to gun down pretty much anyone labeled as an enemy of the states. Yeah. Gotta give the developers points for originality. The craziness of an idea like this could have actually worked. Except for the fact that I'm Muslim myself, and that this game is as enjoyable as stapling your own testicles to the ceiling. I wish I could even try to laugh at the sheer lunacy this game emits, but really, there isn't any actual fun to speak of. Every single stage consists of gutting down one group of terrorists after another, and the sheer monotony is already bad enough. But no, the game goes even further by being plain repetitive as well. In addition to the absolutely horrible and unresponsive shooting controls, the visuals are murky and ugly, the music is terrible, and the overall gameplay is just as bland and uninspired as any other military shooter. Only much, much worse. If you thought that was bad, then just wait until I've told you about the fighting sequences. Basically, there are instances where the game switches from a shooter to a fighting game, and a really bad one at that. You'll be just walking down the road, mowing your way through terrorist scum, and all of a sudden you'll be fist fighting one of them. What for? You have a goddamn gun, just shoot the bastard. There's really no strategy here. All you do is mash buttons and pray that your enemy will drop dead before you do. Even though there is a list of combos you can pull off, you cannot pause the game to take a look at it, and most of the time, the combos don't even work at all. And to add insult to injury, the game has a nasty habit of freezing in the middle of these fighting sections. In essence, this game does everything it can to be as boring, monotonous, repetitive, frustrating, and downright dysfunctional as possible.
Number 6.
What's gonna happen next is that I'm gonna play you some random footage, and I want you to name the very first thing that comes to your mind. Okay? Let's do this. Well, what does this remind you of? Give up? No? Well, for those who have, this is basically Left 4 Dead with Mayans. No, seriously, that's it. The only difference is that this game is complete and utter garbage. Released in the wake of 2012 paranoia, this game tried to cash in on the supposedly evident and apparent apocalypse conspiracy that were about to be unleashed upon us. Instead, it ended up being a blatant ripoff whose shittiness can be summed up by calling it the sham of a game. The only weapon you have access to is this gauntlet, or arm cannon, or whatever the hell it's supposed to be, which basically has the destructive power of a kid's laser toy gun. I mean, just look at it. It shoots those cartoony, flashy laser dots. It makes the same cheesy peep sounds, and it changes color. So yeah, when the apocalypse breaks out, this is what we'll be defending ourselves with. The actual gameplay is essentially the same monotonous stuff you'll find in Left 4 Dead, so going into detail is pretty much redundant. Other major flaws include random and completely uninspired level design, horrendous character design and modeling, as well as shitty animations, followed by a serious lack of inspiration or any remote form of overall engagement. How this game ever even got sold on Steam in the first place is beyond me. Essentially, Revelations 2012 can best be summed up as a joke of a game. The kind that makes you embarrassed as to why you've ever even heard of it in the first place. And the kind that makes you laugh at the sheer stupidity behind this whole 2012 conspiracy crap.
Number 5.
You know, sometimes it doesn't require much to spot a really bad game. Sometimes you can tell right off the bat that the game you're currently playing is just shit in general. As is the case with the game called Navy SEALs. Never mind the game's story and presentation, as both are simply non-existent. What you should be aware of is that this game's visuals are so unclear and lousy, enemies will often blend in with the environment, So don't be surprised if you find yourself bushwhacked by enemies you didn't even see coming! And they also have a very nasty habit of just teleporting around the place for no reason whatsoever. For the fact that this game does its best to be as hard and frustrating as it can, without being fun or entertaining in the least. The shooting controls are just meh, but the hit detection is just so bad. I swear, it's just completely random whether you land a shot or not. At other times, shooting enemies in the midsection almost doesn't even seem to work at all. The enemy AI is just horrendous. Check this out. Oh yeah, did I also mention that this game is only about 150 megabytes large? And this game was made back in 2002. Could you seriously grasp the concept of a game like this being put out for sale? I'm serious. Just imagine something like that. It has so little quality that it's just degrading. You could literally fit the entire development team on a friggin' couch. This game's production value equals to that of a Happy Meal. I'm not lying when I say that even you could make something better than this. Even an amateur FPS creator game has more production value than this. And to actually play a game like this is more degrading than the fact that you could make something better yourself.
Number 4.
Let me ask you something. When you are playing a really bad game, have you ever had the feeling that its producers intentionally try to ruin it in every possible way? Because I for one cannot comprehend as to why developers would go through the trouble of making games whose flaws are so putrid they should feel ashamed of their own ineptitude. And why publishers would even willingly agree to distribute such garbage is beyond me. The reason why I'm telling you this is because games like Rogue Warrior have set the standard for how fucked up a game can be. Before we begin, allow me to pour some insight into this game's horrible development history. The original version, which was developed by Zombie Studios, was initially intended to be a tactical first-person shooter, but very early on, Bethesda, its publishers, disliked those design choices so much that they completely overhauled the development process by giving it to a completely different development team. And just by looking at the final product, all I can say is this. I hope you're fucking happy, Bethesda. I've never played a game that tried so hard to make me hate it for every possible reason it could come up with. If I said one good thing about this game, I'd be overly generous. The list of things this game did wrong is big enough to plummet through the ground. But I'll just sum up its very worst misdeeds. Subpar visuals, rushed production, extremely short 3 to 4 hour campaign, poor controls, multiple glitches, uninteresting gameplay, and quite possibly the most repulsive usage of foul language I've ever seen in a video game. It may not be as vast as the one in House of the Dead Overkill or Mafia 2, but it's so putrid, so disgusting, and so frequent that your ears will cry for silence. I mean, see for yourself.
Rock and roll, motherfuckers. Rock and roll, motherfuckers. Looks like the douchebag convention's in town. Damn suck-ass me. Cocksuckers. The great leader must have a tiny dick. Happy birthday, assholes. Fucking bullshit. Chew on this, fuckhead. Damn cock breath coming, motherfucker. Miss me, motherfuckers. Chew on this, fuckhead. Piss, damn shit. All of you can go fuck yourself. Fuck bag, motherfuckers. Suck my balls, my hairy fucking big balls. Wrap them around your fucking mouth.
And to think, They actually charge people with $60 for this crap. Even if Rogue Warrior had been the only game made in 2009, it still wouldn't have been worth it. It's simply bad.
Number 3.
Ah, yes. Widely seen as one of the most atrocious games in existence, Daikatana is basically the poster child for crappy, overhyped games. Forget Call of Duty, Battlefield, or all those other generic military shooters. Daikatana puts all those games to shame. Originally conceived as John Romero's magnum opus, the next best thing there is next to Doom and Quake, Daikatana's development cycle had garnered so much hype that it has been unanimously panned as one of the most irredeemable shooters in gaming history, and one of the most disappointing as well. The 3 years of development, followed by continuous delays, multiple missed deadlines, and major technical issues, led to atrocious ads such as these, where John Romero's arrogance ultimately led to his comic downfall as one of the most renowned game developers in history. But enough of all that. What is it Daikatana did wrong? The bigger question would be what it didn't do wrong. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Atrociously bad AI. Enemies are as dumb as headless chickens. Your companion AI is even worse. They're either brain dead or just clinically suicidal. And given that they need to stay alive or it was game over, these deadweights turned the game into one big escort mission. The graphics border between really bad and outdated. The story ranges from badly written to completely forgettable. The actual gameplay is either uninteresting, underwhelming, or just downright boring. Seriously, do I even need to explain anything as of this point? Just by looking at it gives you a clear overview of the atrociousness Daikatana presents. Whatever this game was meant to be at one point or another during its tedious development cycle, all the ambition behind it turned into dust, as it went from an ambitious project to a ticking time bomb. And the aftermath would ultimately be seen as the first big step in the downfall of shooters. So yeah, I hope you're fucking happy, John Romero.
Number 2.
What are the main ingredients to make a really bad shooter? Well, that's easy. Combine an outdated game engine with atrociously bad design choices, and voila, you have a game called Extreme Paintball. Aside from being obsolete all by itself, this game goes even further by being one of the most poorly designed shooters in gaming history. Seriously, what can I really say about this game? Enemies have pinpoint accuracy, and every shot that goes in your direction is most definitely a kill. You think that's bad? Well, how about the fact that the enemy AI in this game is even crazier than Daikatana? They'll randomly start doing things like run at the nearest wall, or perform this bizarre moonwalking sequence, which really has no rhyme or reason whatsoever. Oh yeah, I forgot. This game took only 2 weeks to make. And it shows. I've seen half-assed Doom clones that have more quality than this mess. Oh well, still better than Call of Duty, right? Well, not exactly. This crap is even worse. And I apologize, but what you're seeing here is pirated footage. As this game suffers from so many compatibility issues, it's virtually impossible to play this on a modern computer. Heck, it's already a challenge to play this on a Windows 2000, let alone anything higher. It's as if the game does not wish to be played. And that is proof enough as to how horrendous this game truly is. Okay guys, as we've reached the very bottom of the barrel, I think I ought to level with you and share some of my thoughts before continuing. The games I personally conceive as the worst in the entire genre don't need to be the most frustrating, repetitive, or downright unplayable to make me label them as the worst of the worst. The video game Ethnic Cleansing is an exception, because this game is so horrid, so repulsive, so utterly worthless, and so bad that I can't even get worked up about it. This game plummets right beneath the deepest depths of loathing in my soul. This game is beyond anything you've ever seen in what's to be considered a subpar shooter. If you're wondering as to why you've never heard of it, well, there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. Just by looking at it, you should get the picture as to why you've never heard of this excrement of a game. This is a testament to the ineptitude of wannabe game designers, because in technical terms, this game is beyond dysfunctional. I swear, I've never seen a game with such an unstable design as this one. It almost feels as if it's about to crash every single second. The graphics are, to put it bluntly, the most repulsive ones I've ever had the misfortune of bestowing my eyes upon. I'm surprised my eyes didn't bleed from looking at this putrid mess. As for the gameplay, good lord. You basically play as a KK Klansman, going around the ghetto, shooting at black people, who squeal like chimpanzees when they die. I'll repeat that. When you shoot at a black guy in this game, he squeals like a chimpanzee. Yeah. Later on, you enter the metro and go on a Jewish killing spree. Wow. So yes, this is officially the most putrid, disgusting, repulsive, ugly, racist piece of shit game ever conceived by mankind. But then again, what do you really expect from a neo-Nazi record company? What? You didn't know that? This game was made by a goddamn neo-Nazi record company. And their view on humanity is just as putrid as this game's design. It's already enough that I personally see this as the most offensive game in history, let alone the worst in its entire genre. Then again, when you end up playing garbage like this, it's tricky to imagine what could be possibly worse than this. And unless you find something truly more horrid than Ethnic Cleansing, this is officially the worst shooter I've ever played in my life. I'm E. Thompson, and this was the top 10 worst FPS games of all time.